Welcome to Imperial Footprints, where we journey into the shadows of history to reveal the hidden footprints left by empires and their weapons. Today, we sail through the epic saga of the rise of the Royal Navy, England's greatest weapon, the story of how a small island kingdom turned the vast oceans into its battlefield, its protector, and its path to empire. Picture the fog-shrouded coasts of England in the 16th century. Wooden ships creak in the wind, waves crash against their hulls, and cannon smoke rolls through the salty air. Sailors shout orders, their faces lit by flickering lanterns. This was the dawn of a new kind of power, the moment when England began forging a navy not just to defend its shores, but to command the seas themselves. Long before steel warships and global empires, England's early fleets were little more than merchant ships pressed into royal service, scattered and temporary. But that began to change under one man, King Henry VIII. Known for his marriages and political reforms, Henry was also obsessed with ships, guns, and the idea that control of the sea meant control of destiny. He established great dockyards at Deptford and Woolwich, founded the Navy Board, and began building the first true warships, designed for battle rather than trade. For the first time, England had a standing navy, not a handful of coastal boats, but a national force. The English sea power was being born. Under the Tudor crown, especially Elizabeth I, the Royal Navy transformed from a tool of defense into the spearhead of ambition. Elizabeth's reign saw daring privateers like Sir Francis Drake and John Hawkins sail across the oceans, striking at Spanish treasure fleets and expanding England's reach. Then came the great test, the Spanish Armada of 1588. Spain, the mightiest empire on earth, sent a fleet of 130 ships to crush England. But the Royal Navy, outnumbered yet agile, used fire ships, wind, and cunning to scatter the invaders. When the smoke cleared, England had survived, and something greater had begun. The defeat of the Armada was not just a victory of ships, but of identity. From that moment, the English began to see themselves as a naval people. The sea became their shield and their sword. In the centuries that followed, the Royal Navy became the beating heart of England's power. Through the 17th and 18th centuries, it evolved from a fleet of wooden galleons into a professional war machine. It developed training academies, supply chains, and dockyards capable of building fleets at an astonishing pace. This was the age when the phrase, "Britannia rules the waves," became not a boast, but a statement of fact. The Navy protected trade routes, crushed piracy, supported colonies, and fought wars from the Caribbean to the Indian Ocean. Every cannon fired and every sail raised extended the reach of the British Empire. The rise of the Royal Navy was, quite literally, the rise of Britain itself. By the time of the Napoleonic Wars in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, the Royal Navy stood unmatched. In 1793, it had over 100 active ships. By 1812, it had grown into the largest fleet the world had ever seen. It blockaded France, defended the British Isles, and ensured that Napoleon could never invade. This was the golden age of naval supremacy. British ships ruled the seas, from the icy waters of the North Atlantic to the warm harbors of the Mediterranean and beyond. Naval heroes like Admiral Horatio Nelson became national legends, their names carved into history. The Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, where Nelson destroyed the combined French and Spanish fleets, confirmed that Britain was the undisputed master of the oceans. As the 19th century dawned, technology transformed the Royal Navy again. Steam replaced sail, iron replaced wood, and Britain, determined to remain supreme, declared through the Naval Defense Act of 1889 that its navy must always be as strong as the next two navies combined, the famous two-power standard. It was a declaration of dominance, but also of fear, the recognition that sea power was the foundation of national survival. Battleships like HMS Dreadnought revolutionized warfare. The Royal Navy wasn't just a fleet anymore. It was a symbol of global control, the ultimate expression of industrial and imperial might. But behind the thunder of guns and the gleam of steel were the men who lived and died upon the waves. Thousands of sailors, officers, and dock workers built and manned this floating empire. Life at sea was brutal: cramped decks, disease, harsh discipline, and the ever-present threat of death. Many were pressed into service through the infamous press gangs, torn from their homes to serve the crown. Yet these men, through courage and endurance, became the living engine of empire. They braved storms, mutinies, and battles so fierce that the very sea seemed to boil. Their sweat, blood, and spirit turned England's wooden walls into the greatest weapon the world had known. By the dawn of the 20th century, the Royal Navy's power had spanned the globe. It had carried British soldiers to India, Africa, and the Americas. It had policed the oceans, suppressed the slave trade, and protected a web of colonies that stretched from Canada to Australia. Every port, every colony, every trade route was linked by the white ensign. The rise of the Royal Navy had not only defended England, it had built the British Empire. Yet no empire lasts forever. 2 world wars and a changing world order eroded the vastness of Britain's rule, but the Royal Navy remained a force to be reckoned with. Though the age of empire passed, its legacy endured, in technology, in culture, and in identity. Today's Royal Navy is smaller, but still formidable, a guardian of Britain's maritime interests and a living reminder of centuries of seafaring mastery. And so, when we speak of England's greatest weapon, we are not talking only about cannons and ships. We speak of something larger, the idea that a nation surrounded by sea could use that sea not as a barrier, but as a bridge. The Royal Navy was England's sword, its shield, and its soul. From the windswept docks of Tudor London to the steel decks of modern destroyers, the Navy has remained the living pulse of an island nation that once ruled the waves. So there you have it, the story of how England's Royal Navy rose from humble beginnings to become the most powerful maritime force in history. It is a tale of kings and sailors, of courage and innovation, of empire and endurance. The sea shaped England, and England, in turn, shaped the world. If you've enjoyed this voyage with Imperial Footprints, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more deep dives into the great tides of history. Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon, because history, like the ocean, is always moving.